So, as synchronicity would have it, the last video I'm speaking about the innate propensity of the human being is towards violence. So, I'm in the changing rooms after my workout, and there's this young guy. It turns out he's only 15, but I would have had him down for being about 21. You know, he's as tall as me and as heavy as me. But anyway, we started talking, and he's Irish. Well, he's born English, but he grew up in an Irish travelling community. And that's why he says he has such a pronounced Irish accent, because he said he speaks more pronounced Irish than his parents. And he attributes that to all of the indigenous Irish people that are over in Britain now in this travelling community have influenced his dialect. So he was telling me that he's a boxer, he's just started boxing. He's had a couple of fights, won one, lost one. But in his community, that's how problems are solved, invariably. Because he reckons that their philosophy is that if you've got a problem with another family, then you can argue and argue and argue, and the feud will go on for years and years and years until you bury the hatchet. Now that phrase, people, is very important, because if we don't bury the hatchet, if you don't smash an axe into another person's skull or another clan's skulls, if you don't go to war with another clan and let the blood flow, then the hatchet hasn't been buried and you will harbour resentment forever. And so this is what's happening with modern societies. We are harbouring resentment because we never bury the hatchet anymore, because we're not permitted to, because the only people who are permitted to bury the hatchet, or at least deal with our issues, is the state. And this is why, even in many Western world countries now, we can barely even get away with manslaughter, because they don't even want us to protect ourselves or our families. And if you've got someone that breaks into the house and is evidently intent on violence, has got a knife and comes across you and your family, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, people? Are you going to call the police and run out the house screaming, help, help, there's a man with a knife alone in the house with my wife and children? Are you going to do that? Well, I think today many men would do that, because many men are like girls these days. They're even worse than girls. I think even every woman, I don't know how many women would run away from their children. They instinctively would die to protect them. And so what I'm getting to, people, is that's what a real man is. And that's what every single man alive should be capable of. Every single man alive should be capable of taking another man's life if necessary. And so if it comes to that your wife, children, or your husband and whatever are in grave danger, and you can prevent them with your act of violence, then you must do it. You have to have the honour to do it, and whatever the cost is, if the state want to put you in prison, you say, fuck the state, I'm standing by my honour. Because we cannot be afraid of the powers of the state and then spend the rest of our lives cursing ourselves because we were too cowardice to protect our loved ones. And so, with the apathy and the weakness of the males in all Western countries, this is a major issue, because we don't have the balls and the power generally en masse to protect ourselves. We don't have the balls to protect our land, our sovereignty, our women. We're letting swarthy folk from all over these third world countries come into our countries and do what the fuck they want. That is absolutely a shocking indictment on the so-called man of the times. Absolutely shocking. Men should be down in tools, whatever they are doing, whatever vocation they have, down tools, and you maraud. You completely encompass government buildings. So the politicians, these cowardly bastards, can't come or leave. You just build a human wall to prevent that from happening. And if hundreds of thousands of people did that, then you get results. But people are too self-centered, they're too fear-based. Oh, my job, oh, my mortgage, oh, my car payments, my. And when your children get abused, or maybe even murdered by some of these people, well, you've protected the wrong thing, haven't you? You protected the wrong thing. You have to protect your integrity, people, at all costs. And that's the thing, people don't have integrity anymore. Because the state has been pacifying the masses forever, so they don't have any personal integrity. You leave the integrity to government. Government are the ones who are capable of carrying out any level of integrity. They have social integrity. Individuals are not supposed to have integrity. You're just supposed to follow rules and regulations. That's what you're supposed to do. And if someone breaks into your house with a knife, with fucking a crazed look in their eyes, well, you just pick up the phone and you call the state, and they'll be over as quick as they can. Yeah, I don't think so, people. I don't think so. Now, when we listen to Jordan Peterson, those of you that do, you will see that he is very in keeping, or I am very in keeping with his way and train of thought, because he well knows that evil runs through the heart of every man, potentially. And if you question what actually evil is, then it gets into very, very grey areas. We tend to get into the postmodernistic realm, whereby there's no real black and white, it's all shades of grey. Because if someone perpetrates an act of evil, well, says who? Who says it was evil? Some things are considered to be evil by certain societies and not by others. And so when Cain killed Abel, well, was that evil? And who was to judge him? God? Well, if God judged Cain as being evil, well, God must be evil also, because Cain came from the loins of God. And so did Satan. And so if Satan's responsible for the evil, well, God's responsible for the evil, so therefore God is evil. And that's the truth of the matter, people. There is no separation of good and evil. It's an amalgamation of the two. We are capable of the two. That's what the whole cosmos is about. That's what the whole of living matter is about. It's a conglomerate of the polarities of existence, and we can call them good and we can call them evil. We can call them right and wrong. We can call them left and right. But they are the polarities which are the fundamental building blocks of existence, and we are it. So we are evil, people. But as we evolve, then we exhibit evil less, because we've got constraints. And I'd like to say that when we evolve psychically, I'd like to think that the human being is getting more benevolent and more cohesive, more caring for the fellow man in general, but it isn't evident. It really isn't evident. In actual fact, we seem to be going further away from that. So it's too powerful a building block for the human being to be self-serving. And I watched I've watched lots of Jordan Peterson documentaries. One of them I watched was a cameraman following him around, whatever he was doing. This is in the early days of him raising to his meteoric power and position in the world. And the cameraman was in his house, and in Peterson's house, it's a very bizarre affair. Of course, it's a large house, and on every single wall in every single room there are paintings which are big enough to be on the wall, but not too big that they can't be on the wall. So basically, most of them are wall size. I'm talking like 8 feet by 6 feet, 10 feet by 8 feet. Depictions of the Nazis, of Lenin, of Stalin, of all different sorts of people like that were in position of power. I don't remember seeing one of Hitler, but you know, Lenin, Stalin, those sorts of people. And he has cultural masks, the sort of things you'd find, you know, in ancient cultures all around the world, whether they're Mayan or whether they're African or, you know, Indonesian, anything like this. Well, he's got these masks, and invariably, you see, these masks were the personas for the tribes people whenever they would do their cultural dances or whatever they would do to entertain themselves. They'd be wearing personas. Persona means a mask. It's a fiction of an entity that we overlay our face with to depict a character. Because mostly these depictions on stage and performances were mute, so they'd just be dancing and just be enacting things. And so Peterson put this mask on, and it was one which was depicted, horrific face, and the cameraman said, so which one's the real you? And Peterson went, that's a very good question. He said, both. Because he knows the whole Alexander Solzhenitsyn line that evil runs through the heart of every man. Because being a clinical psychologist, he studied evil for many, many years. He started to look into the root of evil as a teenage kid. 12, 13, 14, he was a prolific reader. And, reading, about Stalin and Lenin and Hitler and Pol Pot and any number of person that we could deem to be evil, looking for the root of evil. And that's why he is so emphatically involved in the biblical corpus of good and evil. Illustrations like Cain and Abel, looking for the root of where does this evil derive from. Well, I mean, in religions it derives out of a monster, a demon, a devil, and it doesn't matter what religion you have, they all have their demons, jinns or devils or all this sort of thing. But what are those? They're just projections of the human psyche, aren't they? That's what they are. And so when we see all these masks, these warrior masks and these play masks and all that, well, they're just reenacting certain characteristics of their inner spirit. When we see like tribes people wearing heads of like bison or goats or what other animals, and they put their feathers, like Indians do, they put the feathers of eagles on, and it means something highly connected to that archetype of that animal and to that natural existence of power and strength and vision and all these different sorts of things. So the chief wears that because the chief can fly higher psychologically. He's got the power, the talons and the claw. He's got the vision. He's a fantastic warrior. So therefore, he will be called like Bold Eagle, these sort of things. And so it's all about archetypes, people. And nothing's changed. Everything's about archetypes. And this guy in the gym then, young lad, trained to be a boxer, keeping within the family the tradition. And I said to him, it would be a little bit more humane to wear gloves. Okay, so you've got a feud with a family member, well, put some small gloves on, put some bag gloves on, so you're not doing too much damage when you punch the fuck out of each other. If you wear bigger gloves, then hopefully you won't punch their teeth out and all this sort of thing. It's a case of, well, do you want to do that? Do you really want to do that? Because if you do that, and if you knock people's teeth out and break their nose and disfigure their faces, then they're always going to hold that against you. and they're always going to want a revenge, a retribution at some stage. But if you just have a gentleman's bout of boxing and nobody gets maimed, then I would have thought that would have been a better result. Because hopefully you could proverbially bury the hatchet without blooding one another up, or at least without deforming each other. But he says no, it's tradition, that's how it's always been, bare knuckles. And so they're sticking to that because fighting with bare knuckles is the closest they're going to get to burying the hatchet. They probably don't feel that they could bury the hatchet with a boxing match, because it's like, oh, I wanted to really, fucking teach him a lesson, but, I couldn't with these big pillows on my hands. So this is the level of hate that the human being possesses. And that's been stifled in modern societies. And we are looking for an outlet of that. This is why we are always being fed these Tarantino type movies, because the powers that be know we need that. And if we're not getting it under our own will, if we can't protect ourselves, if we can't take what we want with acts of violence, then at least we need to have the passion for violence satiated within us by seeing it, which is the next best thing. Wow. Anyway, sometime today I'll be putting up some more videos speaking with Miles, and I'm going to be speaking about narcissism. So tune in if you think that's going to be interesting.